Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. Coming up on Roland Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Virginia has a U.S. Senate race there. We'll be talking with incumbent Senator Tim Kaine about what's happening in Virginia, not only with his campaign, but also critical House races and the campaign of Vice President Kamala Harris. Actor LeVar Burton was honored yesterday at the White House. He'll be joining us in the studio to talk about that particular honor and a bunch of other stuff as well. Plus, climate is a huge issue in this election. We will talk to various experts about how important the climate and the environment is to African Americans and the role it's going to play in this election. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
So much attention is focused on the presidential race, but the reality is the U.S. Senate is also up for grabs. Democrats are focused on trying to maintain their critical seats. One of them is in Virginia. Joining us right now is incumbent Senator Tim Kaine. Glad to have you here on the show. First and foremost, in this particular race, again, we look at what's happening in Montana with John Tester. Of course, Joe Manchin chose not to run. Then you got close races in Texas. You see some separation happening in Florida. And so give me a sense of what's happening in your state when it comes to your race.
Well, Roland, listen, thanks for having me on tonight. I'm glad to chat. I feel good about my race. We're 2 weeks out. We've worked very hard. I think I just passed 200 campaign events around Virginia this year. I'm getting everywhere, and I am not giving up on anybody or any part of the state, no matter how red it might be or no matter how, quiet it might have been in earlier elections. I'm going out and really trying. And I will say this, the Joe Biden putting the torch of leadership into Kamala Harris's hands in July fundamentally transformed the energy. I was feeling good about my race, but the presidential race in Virginia was looking real challenging. And as you know, we used to be rock solid red forever. We started to go blue with Barack Obama in 2008. Joe Biden putting that torch into Kamala's hands has really given us a great opportunity to win the 13 electoral votes for her and Tim Walz. I feel good about my race. And then there's 3 congressional races that are very tight in Virginia. You know Virginia well. You know the 2nd, 7th, and 10th races I'm talking about. So I'm trying to run my race in a way that will.
Look like you're freezing a bit there, so folks, let me know if we have the senator's feed. Let me know if that is straight. You talked about those other races as well. Look, I was there in Virginia last year with Don Scott, who is now the Speaker of the House in Virginia. And yeah, we see what's happening on the level, in terms of on the local level in these state races. And so right now, everything is not about, frankly, to be honest, it's not about television ads or radio ads. It's really about ground game. And so what is that ground game in Virginia, not only for your race, but also for the presidential race and those congressional races?
Roland, we feel really good about the ground game, and I think the Harris-Walz campaign also looks at the Virginia ground game as a little bit of a model. We put it together early last spring to get petitioning done for everybody, and then we rolled right from that petitioning into a ground game. You're right, the ads do matter, but at the end, it's the person-to-person touch. And so, we've really focused on don't leave any communities out. We can analyze early vote, and we see where early vote is strong and where it's weak. We see where communities are energized and also where we need more attention, and we're making sure that we deploy and even move resources around into the parts of the state where we need to definitely knock it out of the park. I'm thinking about Hampton Roads in particular, that 2nd largest metro area in Virginia. We're spending a lot of time focusing there to make sure we get the turnout we need.
One of the things that I've been traveling around the country, and I've been in Ohio, I've been in Texas, I've been in North Carolina. I mean, there's so many different places. And Republicans are hitting the vice president, Democrats hard on transgender. You can't watch a football game and not see 8, 10 ads. They've run some 30,000 ads all across the country. What do you make of that? Is it moving the needle? And how do Democrats respond to this attack? Because they clearly are trying to target male voters.
Roland, here's what I think about that. I think the R's might be investing a lot of money into what will ultimately be kind of a cul-de-sac, because if there are voters out there who are really mad at transgender folks, and that's a huge issue for them, they were already not voting Democratic a long time ago on some other issue. So I don't think this is, a persuasion issue. I don't think it's one that's adding to the Republican vote total. I think it will be confirming in some folks that we're going to vote Republican, what they might do anyway. But anytime you pick on a portion of the population that is a fraction of 1% and you try to make them the all-purpose bogeyman, I don't think you really move the needle that big. I think, as I'm traveling around Virginia, I tell you what people are talking to me about. They want to talk about the economy. They want to talk to me about reproductive freedom and personal liberty, and they want to talk to me about health care costs. Those are the big 3. And there's a huge drop-off between that and anything else. And so, we'll see come election day. I've seen the ads too. I've watched the Republicans run this playbook of picking a marginalized group and just piling on them. I've seen this in other elections with other marginalized groups, and LGBTQ folks are this year's version of that bogeyman for the R's. But I don't think that ends up gaining them any votes.
When we talk about the issues, obviously economy is front and center. Immigration is an issue that comes out as well. Specifically, what are you saying to Black Virginians when it comes to the issues that matter the most to them?
You know, I think African Americans in Virginia, the economy is number one. It's the issue that matters the most to the most people. Only talk about civil rights lawyer, the work that I've done to advance the voting rights legislation in the Senate, and I've worked with Kamala Harris to bring down maternal mortality. I talk about those issues because folks get them and they matter, but you do have to make the economic case. And I think an economic argument that we need to make even better as Dems is that the Republican economic philosophy since Reagan has been cut taxes, cut regulation, and it generally doesn't work very well. What the Biden-Harris administration with Democrats has shown is there's a different economic philosophy, and I call it make, build, grow. We make it here in America, we build it here in America, we grow it here in America. It's a little bit like the Black Economic Alliance that has these three strategies of, work, wealth, wage, work, wages, wealth. I think we have a very different economic case than the Republicans, and I think we need to lean into it, that we're manufacturing again, and we're building with infrastructure again, and that's creating high-paying, good jobs for folks. And then we're also innovating again and making a new way on areas like clean energy. So the issue that I want to lead with African American voters and all voters is that we're better when it comes to the economy. We're more likely to grow an economy that works for everyday folks and not just for the folks at the top.
On the particular point when you talked about where African Americans are on a lot of these issues, one of the, you used to head the Democratic National Committee, and the thing here, and I've been saying literally for the last 12 years, that Democratic strategists have not been paying attention to the Black electorate in terms of the further you get away from the Black civil rights movement, they don't align or self-identify as Democrats. And so we've seen the attention when it comes to Black men, trying to also persuade young Black women. That, to me, is an issue that Democrats are going to have to contend with because you simply cannot afford erosion of your base. And what I keep seeing and hearing, and have been saying again for a long time, is that they're not talking to them consistently in off years and also laying out what they're accomplishing. And so, how do you look at that and what is being discussed in these inside meetings? Because it's glaring, it's sitting right there. I'm not sure, and I'll be perfectly frank, that these white Democratic strategists are listening to Black folk tell them what's actually happening.
Roland, you and I have talked about this before, and I think part of it is also, how do we spend money on our campaigns? Do we hire diverse staffs? Do we hire diverse consultants? I mean, I'm very happy that we have a really robust advertising budget in our campaign, both for African-American radio, African-American focused TV, but also for Spanish language, Latino outreach. I was a missionary in Honduras, and I'm fluent in Spanish, so I can do that. We've got to have teams that look like the voters that we want to reach out to. Virginia very well. We have had this sea change in Virginia where the Speaker of our House, African-American Don Scott, the leadership of the Senate, African-American leaders like Mamie Locke and Louise Luke, Reverend Luke Torian. We have strong African-American leadership now dominating our state party and our state legislature, and they're making sure that we pay attention and that we focus our priorities, our outreach, and also who we hire and the teams we put together. But you're right, we got to do much more of this at the national level, no doubt about it. It helps the fact that Democrats have started to put tickets together that look more like America with, Barack Obama in 08 and 12 and Kamala Harris for VP in 20 and now leading our ticket in 2024. We've shown a willingness to put together tickets that really are looking like the voters, and that's so important. And I think that speaks pretty loudly to folks too.
Well, it's going to be a very busy election night, and so we'll be covering it extensively, and so be looking at this race as well. And last question for you, that's Texas race. Looking at that, Sherrod Brown's race in Ohio. What help are Democrats sending to them? Because again, both of those are very tight races, and the reality is, you gotta hold on to the Ohio Senate seat. And again, and Montana, it looks like Tester is down anywhere from 4 to 6 points. That's slipping away. And so the pickup may very well be the seat in Texas, especially with the independent who's leading the Republican in Nebraska.
Roland, you said it right. We're going to lose the West Virginia seat, and that means we lose our majority. If we lose one other seat, we lose our majority, and so we can't. And the Montana race is looking tough right now. But I tell you, I don't think anybody's ever made money betting against Jon Tester in Montana. I would advise people not to bet against the guy. He's tough. He's a great campaigner. But it is good, as you point out, that we now have some races on the chessboard that people might not have thought. Colin Allred in Texas did a hell of a job in that debate last week, a fantastic job, and he is really scaring Ted Cruz. And the Republicans who weren't planning on spending money are now having to, and Dems are too. You see Kamala Harris is going to Texas in a couple of days. That's because of that very close race that she has a chance to help influence. Sherrod Brown, he's ahead in Ohio, in a state where the law of averages says he would be behind, but he's ahead. I think he's going to win. I don't think he loses that race. And then we have this unusual setup in Nebraska where there's both Senate seats are up, one Republican incumbent. Pete Ricketts is way ahead, but Deb Fischer is in the fight of her life against an independent union organizer who has done a hell of a job. That is a real wild card race. It's just good as we're looking at a tough map to know that we got a couple of pickup opportunities out there.
All right. Senator Tim Kaine, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, Roland. Thanks, man.
All right, folks. Today, former President Barack Obama was on the road with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. They were in Wisconsin. Vice President Kamala Harris is preparing for interviews with NBC and Telemundo. And as you heard Senator Tim Kaine say, she will be on the road in Texas on Friday. And so a lot's happening in the political world. Going to go to a break. We come back. We're going to chat with LeVar Burton. He's got lots of awards, but he picked up a big honor yesterday at the White House. We'll tell you all about that. Plus, in our second hour, climate, the environment, huge issue, and it greatly impacts African Americans. We'll be focusing on that as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
IVF is a miracle for us because it allowed us to have our family. After having my daughter, I wanted more children, but my embryo transfer was canceled 8 days before the procedure. Donald Trump overturning Roe v. Wade stopped us from growing the family that we wanted. I don't want politicians telling me how or when I can have a baby. We need a president that will protect our rights, and that's Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Bob and I both voted for Donald Trump.
I voted for him twice. I won't vote for him again. January 6th was a wake-up call for me.
Donald Trump divides people. We've already seen what he has to bring.
He didn't do anything to help us. Kamala Harris, she cares about the American people. I think she's got the wherewithal to make a difference. I've never voted for a Democrat.
Yes, we're both lifelong Republicans.
The choice is very simple.
I'm voting for Kamala.
I am voting for Kamala Harris.
In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. It should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is a danger to our troops and our democracy. We can't let him lead our country again.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems.
Oh, she had a big crowd. Oh, the crowd.
This weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. America's ready for a new chapter. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Wrongfully convicted.
5 teenagers were arrested, tried, convicted, and sent to prison.
No men were exonerated.
What he did to us, he tried to end us.
Of course I hate these people.
So-called Central Park 5.
Calling by execution. And let's all hate these people.
You cannot have this man go into office again.
I want society to hate him. We were innocent kids.
The confessions were coerced.
Today, we are exonerated. That guy says he still stands by the original guilty verdict.
This is about democracy being on the ballot.
I have absolutely no compassion.
Look at Kamala. She represents the kaleidoscope of the human family. There's something different happening in America. We will get the opportunity to build a future where we will be able to thrive and not just survive.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here. Hey, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Joining us in studio is actor, game show host, reading enthusiast, and all that good stuff, LeVar Burton. What's happening? I'm all good.
You are always good, Roland.
I'm just out here just having a little fun, trying to give folks a little hell every day.
You're succeeding.
Now, you picked up a big award yesterday.
Wow. I'm still floating. My heart is full. In a ceremony yesterday at the White House, in the Oval Office, the President of the United States put the National Endowment of Humanities medal around my neck. And, you know, it might have been in the back of my mind to get a nod from the National Endowment of the Arts, but this was from the humanities side for my work in literacy over the years.
Now explain that to folks, because it's all kind of different awards that come
there
from
are.
the White House.
Yeah,
because I was confused because there's a National Medal of Arts.
Right.
and this is different.
This is different. This is the National Endowment of the Arts and the National Endowment of the Humanities, which are government organizations that support both the arts and the humanities. And they did not give awards in 2022 because of COVID. So 2 classes of medal recipients in both the arts and the humanities were given honors last night at the White House. It was pretty bomb.
So pretty good group too. I saw on social Missy Elliott,
yes,
Spike Lee,
Queen Latifah,
okay,
Steven Spielberg, John Meacham, Eva Longoria. It was, and to, you know, Skip Gates did my genealogy recently, and I discovered that my inclinations toward education don't solely come from my mother's side of the family. I did not know that on my father's side of the family, I have educators as well, and a member of the Arkansas legislature during Reconstruction. So I have always felt a sense of belonging and destiny in this country. And now, Roland, I have receipts. You feel me? I have receipts. I am part of a lineage of Black people that have been focused on the betterment of Black people through education primarily. And I love that because it just reaffirms for me that I am where I'm supposed to be, that I am in my purpose, and that's all that I need to do is stay there, stay in my lane.
When you talk about, I mean, again, how vital education is, there's so many stories and there's so many things that folks have done. I think about the book, The Education of Blacks in the South from 1860 to 1935, that lays out just a fervor when slavery ends. So you have these white folks from the North who say, oh, we're trying to race down to help educate these freed, formerly enslaved folks of African descent. And they get there, 500 schools already open. Right. They were like, we ain't waiting on y'all. No. And then was amazing reading this book. He talked about collective bargaining, where there were folk who negotiated with plantation owners. If y'all want us to work the land, you have to have a school on site. And one stat that jumped out, I think it was 92% of all Black kids in Memphis were in school, and it was only 40% of white kids in D.C. And so that fervor,
focus,
I mean, they were, and what I say is, what they were saying is, okay, if we could have gotten killed, because we were seen reading the book, there must be something about that thing that's huge.
Can I share something with you? I have been able in my career represent the Black experience in America from our enslavement to the stars. And LeVar, the Reading Rainbow guy, is smack dab in the middle of that continuum. You feel me? So
you said that on the Hulu, I'm sorry, was it the FX with Lawrence Fishburne?
Yes.
And so I saw it. And so those conversations y'all were having, and you made that very same point, playing Kunta Kinte, and then
Geordie LaForge from Star Trek, and
Reading to America,
and then the Reading Rainbow for 23 years on PBS. So what that says to me again is I'm in the right place. I'm doing what my soul called for me to do, and that's not a bad feeling at all.
Does it pain you when you see these education stats, when you see post-COVID what happened, especially the Black kids?
Yes.
When you see what else? There was a study the other day. College students didn't know how to read a book because of their attention spans.
It's not good out there, Roland, and how could it not be painful to observe? We used to do a much better job of educating our kids in this country. I believe that we have made a choice, a conscious decision, to spend more and more money on war and the machineries of war than we have educating and feeding, our children. But all hope is not lost. There are really talented, committed people who are out here in what I call, at the point of purchase, in the trenches, trying to make change.
I had somebody, when I interviewed the vice president a week ago, someone Someone said, I don't understand, and I've been getting this for years. They were like, I don't understand, Roland, why you support school choice. And I said, well, first of all, let me be real clear what I support.
Okay.
I support black people being in control of the education of black kids.
Okay.
I said, now, if there's gonna be a system that allows for me to control the curriculum, control the hiring, control the contracts, and control the whole, I said, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Because, again, when I look at, and listen, I went to traditional schools. I've never gone to private school from K all the way through college, all public schools. But I look at it as a delivery system. I don't look at it as the only way to educate kids.
Right.
I look at it every possible way. I got no issue if you homeschool, private, parochial, magnet, all different ways, as long as it's working.
As long as it's working.
That's the most important thing for me.
Well, with book bans going on and the censoring of material and trying to, change history through editing and omitting, we need to be vigilant. We need to resist.
But see, that also happened because many of us checked out of the political system. So after the 2020 election, Steve Bannon and others, they made it clear. Moms for Liberty were organizing and they were running their folks in a lot of majority black areas, low turnout, and all of a sudden the folk woke up.
School boards.
Here you had
full of these
majority of these folks running these school boards.
Yeah.
The first thing they started doing was firing superintendents. They in South Carolina, the back-to-back superintendent of the year got fired in 2 different districts. And this is what I was saying to folk, this is what happens when we don't show up. And these are majority black districts being led by folk who don't look like us. And that's why I tell folk, we can't say, oh yeah, I'm gonna focus on the presidential race. I said, no, it's that school board race, the city council race. And so now we're on the defensive against these efforts.
Organized efforts.
There you go. Organized and well-funded.
Absolutely.
But what I always keep saying, though, is they may have all the money, but they still cannot beat votes. But if you don't show up, that's how they win.
That's it.
And that's where those book bans really started taking off.
Yeah. It became an opportunity for them to get in there and to start controlling things. And, now we have to respond, and we have to respond with resistance as best as we are able.
How, I won't say aggressive, but are there any examples, and I'm sure it is, you've been out public somewhere, and you've come across a young kid, and do you challenge them, question them on what they're reading, and require them to recite it back to you?
I like engaging with young people. I was with young people today at a correctional facility, not too far out of town. I like engaging them around what their passions are, because I believe that parents ask me all the time, how can I get my kid to read more? And I generally ask them 2 questions. Number 1, how often do your children see you read?
There you go.
That modeling is critically important. Absolutely.
That's first.
And then I ask them, what are your child's passions?
Right.
It's our passions that tend to drive our reading appetites. I've said for years, if your kid likes superheroes, then damn it, buy your kid comic books.
Right.
Because I don't care what.
That's the entry point.
I don't care what the gateway drug is.
Right.
I just want kids to read.
Right. I was, when I was in Arlington, Texas, I was at a barbershop, and the brother who was cut by his name was Cotton. And so Cotton, that was his nickname. And his son's nickname was Lil Cotton. So all the guys in the barbershop were talking about, Lil Cotton was a baller. I mean, was a hooper. And so they all sitting here talking about his exploits. I'm getting my hair cut, and I was like, Lil Cotton. I said, what you reading? He's like, excuse me, Mr. Martin. I said, what are you reading? I said, I don't want to know what you read in school. I want to know what you read out of school.
Right.
And so he sort of asked a question. I said, well, here's the deal. Every time I come in here, I'm going to ask you that question. And I'm going to need you to tell me, I want to know the book. I want to know the author. I need you to tell me what it's about. Yeah. And he was like, he said, yeah. So then his dad said, man, Roland, I got to apologize. He said, man, I should be doing that. I said, Cotton, it's all good. I said, but let me help you out. I'm not interested I said, they all talking about his basketball skills. I'm not interested in that. I want to know what he's reading. He gets a Division I scholarship, goes to Southern Methodist University, ends up injuring his knee, but graduates.
Good.
But the thing there, because I do it all the time, I will ask, what are you reading?
Yeah.
Because I don't assume that parent is making them do it.
Yeah.
And I've had some folks go, I can't believe you asked that question. I'm like, no, I want to know that. And because I always got books with me.
It's a great question to ask young people. It really is. And, you know, with the device in our hands, it's a taller hill to climb.
And see, with the devices, I then go, what are you reading on the devices?
Because
see, that's the other thing.
Because you can. They do. I can't watch a movie on my phone. I mean, I can, but I don't enjoy it as much.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm from a generation where, you know, I have an attachment to printed words on a page.
Yeah,
right?
I can't do audiobooks.
You can't. Some people can't.
It's crazy. I can listen to speeches.
Okay.
I can listen to sermons. I can remember those things, but for books, I have to actually read.
Yeah.
And I read very fast because I typically read 7 to 9 books at one time.
Okay.
I can't do one and go, no, my brain is, so I'm like literally, so it'll be 20, 30 pages here. So I have books all over the place, like literally in every room, in multiple cars.
Yeah.
I remember I was covering a NASCAR race when I worked for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. It was in Hampton, Georgia. But the traffic was literally backed all the way up to the freeway in Atlanta. I read 100 pages of Katharine Graham's autobiography sitting in traffic. We weren't going nowhere. It was like okay, all right. So again, that's how
that's how your mind works.
Yeah.
Being a voracious reader has been one of the most dominant influences in my life. And it all comes from my mom. My mom was a reader, right? And she read not just to us. I have 2 sisters. She read to us when we were kids, but she also read in front of us. And that made the big difference.
I remember one of my nieces. So my wife and I've raised 6 nieces.
Nieces?
And one of them came to me, and she's like, Uncle Roro, she says, can I watch TV? And I went, she went, read a book.
Good,
I went,
good choice.
That's a good answer. Literally, it was just a look. I was like,
yeah.
like read a book. But they saw me reading, and again, I have books everywhere. So then as she gets older, so she's in college. So she comes to me and she's like, okay, we have this assignment. And I was like, okay, what's the assignment? It was something dealing with Reconstruction, U.S. Senators. I was like, okay. So we go to the library, here, here. So all of a sudden she got like 8 books, and she's like, okay, I just asked a simple question. I was like, oh yeah, but this is the first black senator. Here's that book, and here's this one. I'm like, yeah. So here's your assignment. So she's like, he gonna hand me 8 books to read. I was like, look, you asked the question. I said, ain't my fault. I read all the books. But I was like, yo, if you want that subject, I said, go read all that. Then you have a better understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's just how I've always operated.
Challenging our children, challenging our kids, and having high expectations for them is a good thing.
I want to go back to those conversations in the series on Donald Sterling.
Clipped.
Were those actual discussions you and Doc Rivers had?
No.
Was that Hollywood license?
Let me set the record straight.
Okay.
I have never met Doc Rivers, but those conversations all came directly from my life and my lived experience.
Ah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's what I.
The writer Gina Welch came up with an ingenious device to give the audience a sense of Doc's mindset during that crisis through these conversations with LeVar Burton in the sauna at the condo. And the final conversation that we had was really my whole reason for wanting to take part. When Fish called me and said, would you be okay playing yourself in this thing that I'm doing? And I said, absolutely, provided I can talk about something real, something meaningful to me. And I wanted to talk about my rage.
So have you not talked? Have you? So
not yet. It's coming. It's coming. Gonna happen.
Because I was watching it and I was like, and that's always whenever I see, again, first thing I'm thinking, okay, did this actually happen?
Right.
That's like the first thing I go to. I'll actually be watching something and I'll be like, yo, did this actually happen? Did this actually happen? And I'm just wondering, and I was like, because again, the conversations were fascinating. They were having back and forth because they were really speaking to, again,
what it means to be a black man in America,
right.
a successful black man in America. What are the pressures? What are the pleasures? Right? It was real talk.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was.
And those are conversations that Fish and I have all the time. You see what I'm saying? We have those conversations all of the time, and so we just move the venue to a set.
Because what I thought was just so interesting, especially when he was talking about, you know, what he went through. And I remember reading the story of when his house was burned down in San Antonio.
Right.
And how he would often just try to put stuff aside. And folks, if y'all haven't seen Clipped, it's a fascinating series about all the internal drama over the racist comments Donald Sterling made. He owned the LA Clippers. And it was just so interesting. And then the conversation between Doc and his dad. And so here he is, he's trying to control this rage and wants them to focus on playing basketball. And then wonders, man, should I have allowed that rage to move forward? Because it was interesting watching it, because I remember sending Chris Paul a couple of messages. And I think what happens too often when these moments take place, we know in this country, we want sports to just sort of just serve as this that's just our escape. Let's just escape this stuff. Let's just sort of just step away from it. As opposed to confront it and then confront even the broader issues here. And so that's why I just really thought that was just what was really fascinating.
Clipped did that, I thought, very well.
Yeah.
It really talked about the issues attendant to the world of sport. Yeah, and how race definitely plays a factor, always has, right? Look at the NFL today.
Yep.
All the black quarterbacks. They wouldn't let black men play quarterback back in the day, but
could have played two positions. Could play quarterback or middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Because the middle linebacker is seen as the quarterback of the defense.
It's quarterback of the defense calls the shots.
Same thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. We recently lost John Amos. And of course, y'all connection to Roots.
We played the same character at different points in his life. Yeah. Roots cast is getting a little thin. We lost Lou.
Yep.
We've just lost John. But the legacy still lives. It really does.
I don't think. I mean, my friend Will Packer was producing the remake.
The remake.
I don't think, and I hate the folk who don't have an appreciation of history, really understand how huge that was.
Yeah. You'd have to have really been there and lived through it to really fully understand how that 8 nights of television just captivated the nation's attention.
I mean, cable was in its infancy.
Yeah.
You didn't have streaming. You didn't have all the devices. So literally, it was in America with 3 major networks. Sure, you had some independent stations.
Yep.
But it was. I just remember it vividly. I mean, literally, America shut down.
It did. Hotels and casinos in Las Vegas emptied out. Everybody was upstairs in their rooms watching. In prisons, and I mean, you could. And then the next day, after the episode aired the night before, it was the conversation.
Right.
It was the national conversation.
Did all of y'all? First of all, remember, every dadgum black actor was trying to get in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the thing to get in.
It was.
But as y'all were shooting it, did people really understand?
What was clearly understood, and you know, Roots was my first job. It was my first professional audition. So my very first day as a professional.
Out the gate.
Out the gate. I was a student. I was a drama theater major at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. So my first day as a professional actor, Cicely Tyson played my mother, Dr. Maya Angelou played my grandmother, okay? And they schooled me. And in the makeup trailer, which is sort of the heart of a set, because it's where the actors all congregate in the morning and they get their touch-ups there after lunch and they take their makeup off at the end of the day. The excitement from the vets was palpable to me. They were saying, I've been doing this a long time. This is the first time I've really been able to portray my people in a way that makes me proud and puts us in a light that we deserve. And I observed that. Everything I know as a professional, I learned from them, from Lou and Cicely and Dr. Maya. They schooled me. They schooled me. And I developed my professional ethics from them.
I gave the commencement speech at Grambling, and the title of the speech was "Never Say Toby." And I've worked in when I've worked in mainstream newsrooms.
Never say Toby.
We would be in the newsroom, and stuff would be going down, and black folks would be upset, and I would just literally say in the newsroom to the black person, I was like, "Hey, never say Toby." White folks had no idea what I was talking about.
Really?
They had no idea what I was talking about. But the black folks knew exactly what I was talking about, and they were like, "Bro, I can't believe you say that." I'm like, "No." I'm like, I said, "You need to understand what that means." I'm like, "No." And they never knew. They had no idea what the reference was. And so when I gave that commencement speech, I was trying to get them to understand that I was showing them, listen, Toby, Kunta, and walk them through what that actually means. And you're going to have to make a decision that may cause pain, that may cause suffering, but your identity and your dignity
not negotiable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not negotiable. That's the lesson.
In clip, you said you still have the chains?
I do. The chains that I wore. The producer, Stan Margulies, presented them to me on a plaque at the end of shooting. The plaque reads, "To a Mighty Child," C-H-I-L-E, from Stan and the Roots Gang. One of my most proud possessions.
Richard Roundtree once said, and we talked about it when I interviewed him, God rest his soul, that it bothered him for a long time that he was defined by Shaft. And his daddy said, "Son, a lot of people have roles and don't. Nobody remember them." And it was then he actually started embracing that no matter what he did, they still saw John Shaft. Has it bothered you, or have you always just embraced the fact that it don't matter what you do. You could be the host of Trivial Pursuit, and you could be doing all this other cinema stuff, and they gonna remember who played Kunta Kinte.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me in the least. Quite the contrary, man. I'm proud of Kunta. Kunta is an international symbol for the indomitability of the human spirit. And Roots was responsible, Roland, in my opinion, for helping to alleviate the shame of our enslavement, right? Black people, I can't get in terms of I could not get my mother to talk about her life, right? And I finally figured out.
Why you talking? My daddy's texting me.
Is he?
He texted me. I'm watching the show. I'm like, he's like, I'm working. He's like, what was that you said? Never say what? Daddy, I said never. Dad, I said never say Toby.
Where is he?
Like literally.
Where is he?
In Dallas.
In Dallas.
Literally, like, what was that you said? Never say what? Never say Toby, Daddy. That's what I was.
Dad, the man is working. He's working. That's crazy. That's awesome, though, that you answer your father.
He does it all the time.
Right.
One time he texted me, told me to move on from a subject. I was like, Daddy, this is my show.
Yeah.
I said, I'm gonna stay right here. He watched so much news and read the newspaper. That's why
What's his name?
Reginald Martin Sr.
Mr. Martin, I, sir, am a big fan of your work. Straight up. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. You were answering What the hell are you talking about? What did I ask him? Y'all remember
Ask
what I
your
asked
father.
him? Yeah. Well, yeah. He was watching. Actually, we'll come back to it. I do want to ask you this here because when the Roommate came out, Snoop did a video. Man, we're so sick of all these slave movies.
Yeah.
And what happened was I saw it when it went viral, and then I saw all of these stories being done internationally.
Sure.
So then I did a video that then got picked up, and then it went international.
Okay.
And then he did one coming back at me, but I never responded.
Okay.
Because I only need to hit you one time. And then he eventually deleted both of his.
Okay.
And we later had a conversation. And what I explained to him was why I felt he was wrong. And why, because he was like, I'm sick of all these slave movies. And I said, the problem is we as black people are viewing these movies through the wrong lens. We are looking at these movies as, we were being subjugated, why we gotta be slaves. Whereas I go, no, those were heroes. Yeah. So I just saw the movie Emperor about the brother who fought alongside John Brown. And that's how I view them. The Will Smith film, There's an Apple, same thing. I'm like, no, those are real life superheroes. And I think that we have to change this in terms of how we view those films because of what folks endured, how they fought, what they went through, the folks who tried to escape and kept trying to escape. No. They understood that this is not going to define
them. What was all about?
Right.
Absolutely.
It was absolute resistance.
But here's the thing. I think I understand the perspective and point of view in as much as if that's the only thing we see of ourselves in the media and film and television, then that's a problem.
Yes.
That reveals.
Right. That's the only movie that can get made. Yes.
Right. So I understand the impulse, and I agree with you. Those stories are heroic. They are about heroes.
Because when I look at, even when we talk about civil rights era films.
Sure.
I can't help but see heroes.
Yeah. Because they are. Because they are. Right. They put in the work, right, that laid the foundation for where we are. Now, we are far from a perfect union, but we are an essential part of the makeup of this country, right? And as I say, we have receipts, and we're not going anywhere.
Right. I remember I had that white supremacist Richard Spencer on my TV One show, and exactly what I said. I said, yes, you may want to go to the gym and work out because we ain't going nowhere. Yeah. I said, let's be real clear. Yeah. We ain't going nowhere. And it was a call to arms to let you know. I'm like, we're not about to back down from any of this. Yeah. And that's where that never say Toby comes in.
That's it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So that's always been sort of just my mentality.
I like it.
Because it's just and you know on the flip side of that. So when you know what the consequences are, same thing. That character knew he was going to get beat, knew there were going to be lashes, but I am not going to give in to this. And I think for a lot of folk, we accept, man, when I worked at CNN, people were like, man, dog, aren't you going a little too hard? No. And I never forget Bernard Shaw, after I left, when I was on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists, we were going after CNN. I called him. He did a clip where he spoke at our convention in Vegas, where he said, white men, you're nothing but more than a small pimple in this world. He gave this amazing speech about diversity. And I called him, and he said, I said, we're doing this campaign, I want to use your clip. He said, Roland, every generation has its moment where it has to fight. Yeah. He said, now is your turn. He said, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing I think that I try to remind folks on this show, we can't act like there is no fight. Yeah. Somebody got to swing.
Yes.
4 nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters come behind.
Sometimes it's a folding chair.
Absolutely. Listen. That's probably one of the most viewed shows. That thing we did, oh my God. Actually, I had some t-shirts made up.
Did you?
And I had a sister who hit me from Houston. She says, why am I sitting here in Houston with my family? And it's my birthday, and they are watching your Montgomery Brawl segment. And I was like, she said, she had FaceTime, but she said, no, look at the screen. They watch it. But that was just one of those moments.
It was a moment.
Where everybody black got it. When my man threw that cap in the air.
It's on. It's on. It was a moment, and it was an important moment for America because what we were able to see, right, and through the magic of these screens being in everybody's hands, was an injustice in progress. And then the people observed that moment and said, oh, no. You're not going to give, he's doing his job.
Right.
You were trying to give that man a hard time, and brother swam, jumped off the boat and swam across.
The cavalry showed up.
They did. They absolutely did, and it was a powerful reminder of what we are capable of when we work together for a righteous cause.
And we don't have to know you.
No, we don't.
But we know the situation was going down.
Yes.
As you were talking, we were talking about other. Is there a real life character that you've always wanted to play or would love to play?
I don't know. I don't think about that, Roland. I have made a career of taking what the universe brings my way and doing the best I possibly can with it. I'm not the guy, I'm not like Kevin Costner. I'm not the guy that can say, you know what I want to do next year? I want to do this movie or that movie. That's not my life. I take what the universe puts in my path.
But you wanted Jeopardy.
I wanted Jeopardy. I did, and I declared it because I thought I was right for the job.
Right.
I did. I absolutely did. And so I was very public about wanting to get a shot at succeeding Alex Trebek. What I didn't understand at the time was that there was a process, right, to that dream coming true. I tell kids when I speak to them, I say, life, like walking, is a controlled fall. When we're walking, that other leg always comes out. Otherwise, we land on our foreheads. You feel me? Take the step that's in front of you. The next step will always reveal itself. You don't need to know the end of the story while you're still in chapter 1. Life, like walking, is a controlled fall. Take that first step. The next step will come along. So what I didn't understand was going after Jeopardy was the step that led me to Trivial Pursuit. And Trivial Pursuit has given me something that Jeopardy never could have done, which is my own show where I do not have to follow in anyone's footsteps. I get to set the imprint. And that's invaluable.
So did that happen because no one knew you even remotely interested in being a game show host? It was kind of like, wow, okay, that's a great idea.
Here's the thing. I was interested in being the host of Jeopardy. I was singularly focused on that. And when it didn't happen, I had to sit in the discomfort of not knowing, well, what was that? I felt like I got hit by a train.
Because so many people rallied behind you. They were like, excellent choice, absolutely.
There was a MoveOn.org petition with hundreds of thousands of signatures on it. But the lesson was, sit in the discomfort long enough and the answer will be revealed.
See, I have always, it's been very interesting. I remember when this was before, no, I was at, actually it was early, I was at CNN, I'll never forget. So Suzanne Mavo and I had the same agent. And he would always do a dinner party with all of his clients at our Black Journalist Convention. And I remember she came to me and she said, you really could be like Lou Dobbs if you do this, this, this. I said, I don't want to do that. And she looked at me and she was like, I said, no, I don't want to do that. So I got no interest in doing that. And it was interesting there because what happened was And I never forget another executive, David Borman, now deceased. I remember we were talking one day when I had launched a line of ties, ascot, and bow ties. And I had other stuff. He goes, now you know, if you were full-time here at CNN, you couldn't be doing all these things. And I went, I know. That's why I'd never be full-time at CNN. Exactly. And like they never understood
who you were.
Right. But they also didn't understand that I didn't see them as the be-all to end-all.
Yes, exactly.
And I think for a lot of us, that's part of the problem. I really think after my book, White Fear, my next book should be called White Validation. Because it's so many of us, I was having this discussion with a brother, when Luther Vandross just wanted to cross over.
Yeah.
And in fact, one year, Lionel Richie wins pop Grammys, Luther wins the R&B Grammys, and Luther was unhappy. And I was like, what the hell? And I think so, it's just that idea. And I think for a lot of people, that's the thing. They want to, there's this crossover to appeal to the masses where I was kind of like, no, I'm gonna do me. Yeah. And I've had publicists who didn't get that, who didn't understand what that means, who didn't understand that for me, I'm perfectly fine what I've built, what I've created, what I've done. And I'm like, no, I don't need to do that. And people really don't understand that. I had an anchor at one of the networks said, are you really having fun? I said, oh, I'm having a ball. I said, because I don't have to ask nobody nothing. I could literally, again, if I say, all right, we're going to broadcast from Miami for a week, we're gone. If we're going to broadcast from the all-black town, Princeville in North Carolina, there we go. I said, I'm not asking permission. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to understand.
It can be, yeah.
Because they're seeking approval.
Because we've been indoctrinated in a certain way. We've been indoctrinated to elevate that gaze as the end-all, be-all of our existence, and it's simply not true. We can re-educate ourselves.
And because, again, what you're talking about in terms you make that step. Back to True Pursuit. How?
Thursday nights, 9 o'clock.
See, there you go. Get that in.
Thursday nights, 9 o'clock. Raven Simone at 8 with Scrabble, LeVar Burton.
There you go.
At 9, from 9 to 10. Please tell your friends. Tell people you don't even like, okay? Please, because...
Because the craziest thing is, I didn't know until today that you were even doing a show. Right. When did it start?
This Thursday will be episode 4, season 1, episode 4.
I had no idea, because as a family, we always play Trivial Pursuit.
Everybody has played Trivial Pursuit at least.
It was 2 games that was in our family. Scrabble.
Yes.
And Trivial Pursuit.
Right.
And it probably took, I'm trying to think which one of us, me, my brother, and my sister, it was 5 of us, one just recently deceased. But I'm trying to figure out how long did it take one of us to beat my daddy. Because he didn't believe in letting you win. He would just abuse you, spelling words you ain't never heard of. But eventually he got beat. So Scrabble and True Pursuit was a thing, and you had to know because he watches all the Jeopardy and be answering all the stuff. So I'm like, dude, really?
What I love about this show is that it is Trivial Pursuit. It's the game that you're familiar with. You will get some of the answers right. You will get some wrong. And at the end of the show, you will have learned something. I say at the end of every episode, Trivial Pursuit, where knowing stuff is celebrated.
Yep, absolutely. What are you reading right now?
I'm not reading anything right now because I am writing my memoir. So I am trying to keep the the attic clear, keep other stuff out. So I've been on a reading fast for the last 3 months, and I'm putting words on the page.
Do you have a process?
I do.
And are you actually writing?
Yes, I am. Yeah. I am. I am writing, and I have help, right? Because I'm busy. But this person is helping me structure the narrative from my life, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that assistance.
So my book, White Fear, I was so busy, I couldn't sit down and write it. So I would literally do audio dumps. It took me 3, the literary agent was like, okay, Roland, when this book, I was like, listen, I said, I'm just trying to tell you, I cannot sit down and do this. And then I was at a conference and I met a woman who knew a ghostwriter. And I was like, perfect. And I remember we even did the book, they were like, well, should have put, I'm like, hell yeah, put a name on it, I don't care. I said, I don't do that ghost stuff. but I would literally just
talk.
And I would just like
but
talk.
You're a storyteller.
And she would ask me a bunch of questions.
You're a storyteller, and then she would pull information out of you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. But I wrote a syndicated column for 10 years, but it was just literally just sitting down. And so I probably, if I had to do memoirs, it would for me everything would be totally audio because I just.
Writing has always been a torturous process for me. I'm hard on myself as a writer. Acting, directing, public speaking, right, producing, writing, because I have such a high standard for what constitutes real prose, legitimate writing, and I have worked on that for a calendar year, and have finally reached a place where I have a process that enables me to sit down and breathe and acknowledge that through me, right? Through me, it will come. That way, I don't have to take responsibility necessarily for whether it's good or not, right? And it's freed up the block.
I've always written, and I worked in newspaper, did syndicated column, all this sort of stuff. But then when I transitioned to doing radio and television, nearly everything was oral.
Yeah.
And so I don't even when they have a script, that's a guide. I don't even go by the script. I can sit here and literally do a whole show and won't even read any of that.
Roland, you can talk a blue streak on just about any subject known to man.
But that's where reading comes in. Because I did a sermon Sunday at Friendship West Baptist Church, and Pastor Freddie Haynes, he always cracks up because I have no notes. I don't come up with any of that.
Right.
I'll literally just take a scripture and then give me the title, and then I'll lay it all out. But where reading comes in, I gave a speech once, and I actually quoted from 14 different books. North Carolina State, the library actually did a reading list. I had no idea it did that. So that's where reading comes in. So I just retain the stuff. So then if I'm speaking, I'll just pull it out. And that's where when young folks come up to me and they say, hey, how to prepare for what you're doing, I said, you have to be well-read. And the crazy thing is I can't read fiction. I cannot read fiction. Because fiction for me is something I can't use.
Wow.
Like I have to use real life.
Let me tell you something.
I think I read 2 fiction books.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
I talk to a lot of young people, and I tell them, you will be responsible for solving a lot of the problems that my generation has created. And chief among the tools you will need is the power of your imagination.
Right.
Fiction is the engine that drives our imagination. I genuinely believe that there was some kid who watched the original episodes of Star Trek, right? Continually seeing Kirk pull that communicator, right, off his hip, flip it open, call Scotty, beam me up. That child became a scientist, an engineer, right, and developed a piece of technology that is more prevalent than a toaster.
Okay. Now I watch fiction.
Yes.
But it's just
reading it. There's no room in.
It just Walter Mosley, when he came to my radio, he's like, I said, all right, tell me about the book. And he was like, I said, oh, I didn't read it. And he was like, what? But what was it? But he was trying to figure out what was interesting. But I also learned this from reading Larry King's book. Larry King, the reason he didn't want research is because he actually wanted to ask questions.
Right. He had natural curiosity.
He didn't, and so we had this whole interview. He was like, I can't believe we did a whole interview and you didn't read one line from the book. I said, no, I'm gonna sit here. And it was just at Proclesion, and my producer was like, oh my God, what? I was like, sorry, baby, I ain't read none of your books. And it's just for me, it's
your problem.
I've tried.
It's the way you are.
Like, I cannot read, because I have to, whatever I'm consuming, I have to, it goes somewhere up here that I'm going to use.
And you retain it.
And for me, it's history. So that's just how I have to use stuff. And I can't use fiction in what I do.
Jessica Rabbit would say, you're just drawn that way. Roland Martin, you're just drawn that way.
Last question for you. Is there something you always wanted to do? I don't care what it is. That you haven't done, you say, I got to do that.
Roland, my life has been so full. My heart is full. If there is something, when I encounter it, I will know, right? But so far, my life is, look, if you had given me paper and a pen and said, go ahead, draw it up, dream up what your life will be like, your career, just the carte blanche, I wouldn't have been this generous to myself. I wouldn't. I mean, my life has been phenomenal and continues to unfold itself in a manner that continually astonishes me. And my whole impetus, you know, is to make my family proud. Not embarrassing my family has been a major motivator in my life.
See, so again, how my brain works. So listening to you in the last 40-some-odd minutes, if I was, again, I've run newspapers, I've had to do headlines and stuff. If I had to come up with a book title for your book, listening with everything you described, it'd be called Let It Flow. Because literally, it's just however the river flows, it just, because you're not trying to plan stuff. You're not trying to, your deal is like, hey, if it, you know, it comes up, it comes up.
I'm responding to what the universe puts in my path. Yeah. But I studied for the ministry earlier in my life. So,
okay.
You know, so, you know, the idea that faith is belief in the absence of proof makes a lot of sense to me.
So you studied for the ministry. Yeah. You ever gave a sermon?
Oh, sure.
I'm just checking. See, I'm bootleg. My wife, she ordained. She got papers. She went to seminary. Right. She got all that stuff. She got do all that. Yeah. I say I'm bootleg. I can't do. That's just too much schoolwork.
Really?
I can't do all that.
Yeah. I don't have the letters, but I have the ability.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any of your sermons online?
No. No.
What?
No. I mean, they were private events.
When last time you preached?
They're private events. I don't preach. I talk. I share my lived experience. I don't preach.
But you did in the pulpit.
I was not ordained.
You ain't got to be ordained?
I left seminary.
Man, I ain't been ordained. I've been in many pulpits.
That's not my deal. I don't do organized religion.
Oh, it wasn't organized.
Okay.
I just did it.
When I walked away from the church, I walked away.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because at the time, I was discovering that the world was much larger than the Catholic dogma indicated.
Born and raised Catholic?
I was.
Same.
Yeah, because my mom was an educator. She knew that the best education for her kids was parochial school.
I got you.
Right?
The Catholic church that I grew up in was founded in my grandparents' living room.
What?
Yes. So then they left from Opelousas, Louisiana, and when you had Opelousas, Louisiana, when you had to start a church, you needed 50 families.
Okay.
And so they literally were going door to door. A lot of people who had migrated there to start Our Lady Star of the Sea Catholic Church. But it started in their living room.
Our Lady
Star of the Sea
Star
Catholic
of the
Church
Sea
in Houston.
Wow.
That's where I was born and raised. Literally, it was 3 blocks from their house. And that was my life until I was 25 in the Catholic Church.
Yeah. But again, you have to take the step that's in front of you. That I had a calling. I really, really did have a vocation, but it wasn't until I was immersed in that culture that I discovered that, wait a minute, there's something else over here. And I had just discovered theater arts. I found my tribe, right? And I thought, wait a minute, there's a whole world out there that I feel like I need to now explore. And so by taking the step in front of me, I left the seminary, got a full scholarship to the University of Southern California to study theater. 2 years later, I was in Roots.
Wow. So we've never seen Kunta Kinte. We've never seen priest, brother LeVar Burton.
Father Bob. Father Bob. I was Bob for the first 16 years of my life.
Father Bob.
First day, this is, my first chapter of the book is called What's in a Name? My name in full is LeVardis, L-E-V-A-R-D-I-S, Burton. I have a black name.
Yeah, that's real black.
That's real black.
LeVardis.
My first day of first grade, Holy Angels Elementary School, Sacramento, California, the nuns swarmed around this blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid. His name was Bob Banke, B-A-N-K-E. Banke Burton. I sat right behind him, and I thought, I want some of this nun love.
Right.
I went home and told my family, as my middle name is Robert, I'll be Bob from now on. And I was Bob for the first 16, 17 years of my life.
Wow.
Until I decided to become an actor, and I thought, I've got this great name. Here's what I'm going to do.
Not Bob Burton.
No.
LeVar.
LeVar. Shorten it. LeVar rhymes with star. How about that? That's where I'm going. I was manifesting, Roland. I was manifesting. I was manifesting.
Yeah, because Bob Burton wouldn't have.
It's not as distinctive as LeVar. And then I had the audacity to capitalize the V.
Oh, see, see? Negroes get real special. You gotta understand, because by being a newspaper journalist and then I autograph books, as a newspaper journalist, you always have to double check spelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm constantly, I'll be trying to book, okay, is that capital V, is that capital D, is that capital P? They look at me like, okay, is that E on the end of that? Because I done seen every spelling.
I imagine you have.
I done seen, I got a new one the other day though when I was in North Carolina. Was I just signing a book? Somebody was Olivet, 2 L's, 2 T's, 2 E's.
Okay.
I said, it was a woman, I said, it was at Fayetteville State, I said, oh, so your mama just really decided to get creative with all the extra damn. She's like, yeah. She said, she been messing me up my whole life. She said, because can't nobody spell my name right. It was 2 L's, 2 T's, 2 E's.
And going back to our previous conversation, I encourage kids especially, but people in general, don't let anyone not pronounce or spell your name correctly, right? Going back to the Kunta moment, right? The Toby moment. Never say Toby, right? Because that's the first step in oppression.
Yep.
Is your identity.
Yep.
So, Olivet, you rock that name.
Run with it.
Run with it.
Well, LeVardis.
Sir.
I've absolutely enjoyed it. Glad you.
Roland, it's always a pleasure to sit down with you, man.
Man, it's just been great. Glad because you got the award and I came back and I was like, yo, you still here?
I was.
You like, I'm still here. Well, actually, I'd hit your wife.
You did.
Because she posted, I hit her, and I didn't realize, and I couldn't even remember that we had exchanged information. And I was like, hell, that was already my phone.
Me, when you,
my phone.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't know whether that may have been I hit you on Twitter or something or whatever the heck.
No, I think we exchanged numbers in New Orleans when we were shooting Roots.
Oh my God!
When we were shooting the
yes, because they brought us down.
Yeah,
and we were at that plantation.
Yeah.
Because when I went, yeah, the numbers already.
Sonny was there. You were there.
Oh yeah. That was that was.
We invited the journalists to come and visit the set.
That was also something special. Yeah. Just that whole deal.
You've been a part of our lives in a very important way for a long time, brother.
And same to you. You've been handling your business, and so we appreciate it.
May it continue.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thanks a bunch.
Always.
And congratulations again.
Peace and blessings.
All right. Folks, going to go to a break. We come back. We're going to spend the next hour talking about climate change, the environment. The impact on African Americans is real, and it's a major issue in this election, even though it does not get talked about a lot. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Jill Stein, Green Party candidate for president. So why are Trump's close allies helping her? Stein was key to Trump's 2016 wins in battleground states. She's not sorry she helped Trump win. That's why a vote for Stein is really a vote for Trump.
Jill Stein, I like her very much. You know why? She takes 100% from them.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
I get it. The cost of rent, groceries, and utilities is too high. So here's what we're going to do about it. We will lower housing costs by building more homes and crack down on landlords who are charging too much. We will lower your food and grocery bills by going after price gougers who are keeping the cost of everyday goods too high. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message because you work hard for your paycheck. You should get to keep more of it. As president, I'll make that my top priority.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
That is a damning non-answer. America, I think you've got a really clear choice of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Winners never back down from a challenge. Champions know it's anytime, any place.
But losers, they whine and waffle and take their ball home.
Trump now refusing to debate a second time.
He did terribly in the last debate. He's so easily triggered by Kamala Harris.
Well, Donald, I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. If you've got something to say it to my face.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
He told us who he was.
Should abortion be punished?
There has to be some form of punishment.
Then he showed us.
For 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it. And I'm proud to have done it.
Now Donald Trump wants to go further with plans to restrict birth control, ban abortion nationwide, even monitor women's pregnancies. We know who Donald Trump is. He'll take control. We'll pay the price.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
The overturning of Roe almost killed me. I had a blood clot in my uterus that caused my labor to have to be induced because of the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I wasn't able to get life-saving treatment sooner. I almost died. And that's because of the decision that Donald Trump made.
I was able to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I'm proud to have done it.
The doctors and nurses were afraid that if they treated me in the incorrect way, that they would be prosecuted for that. And that's appalling. Donald Trump says that women should be punished.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? There has to be some form of punishment. For the woman? Yeah.
I believe that women should have reproductive freedom to make the choices about their own bodies. 4 more years of Donald Trump means that women's rights will continue to be taken away one by one by one by one. This has to stop because women are dying.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Farquhar, executive producer of Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder Disney Plus, and I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
A new poll of black voters across battleground states finds that 1 in 3 black voters is more motivated to vote for Vice President Kamala Harris once they hear contrasting messages on climate action. The poll was conducted by Climate Power in collaboration with HIT Research, of course, led by our buddy Terrence Woodbury. They surveyed black voters in key battleground states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Climate Power's Black Engagement Senior Advisor, Markia Thomas, joins us right now, along with Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former Senior Advisor for Environmental Justice at the EPA, as well as Tamara Toles O'Laughlin, the CEO and President of the Environmental Grant Makers Association. So glad to have all three of y'all here on our climate change special. So Makia, let's start with you. And so just give me the overview of really what y'all were able to discover, how critically important climate and the environment is to African Americans.
So the reason why we wanted to do this poll is because we wanted to be able to actually measure how climate is important to Black voters, and if it's like a top voting issue for Black voters, and also what messaging can move Black voters in this election. And what we have found is what we have always known, that Black voters care about climate. We may not always have the messaging for it, but we absolutely care about it. And some of the messaging that we've seen really resonate with Black voters is how climate is directly connected with the economy and good paying jobs that don't require college degrees. Because in the state that we currently are, we care about our future and we want stability. We want to be able to clean up our communities, and we also want to be able to weather the storms.
But here's the interesting thing. I mean, look, we've had 9, 10 different Black-specific polls on here. We've had lots of conversations, issues folks care about. You've heard so much information about what Black men want, and climate doesn't show up. Is that because of, frankly, how the questions are asked, what they determine to be the issues? Is it a question of not asking about environmental racism? Just your thoughts about that.
I think there are a few things. One of them is that people are not asking the right questions. We talk about climate as if it's like an abstract issue that doesn't impact our day-to-day. And so a lot of people aren't really sure how to measure the climate conversation, as well as I think we don't think about how like a clean energy economy is like the way of the future, because we are busting the monopoly of big oil and fossil fuels being our only source of energy. And in order to do that, we need to be able to create jobs. We're seeing that with our energy grid. We're seeing it with EVs. And I just think for the most part, people conducting these polls just don't have the language on how to ask the right questions.
Also, I'll deposit this. I also think that, frankly, on this issue, so much of this issue has been defined by the language of the right. And so many folks on the right, climate hoax, this stuff is not real. Oh my goodness, you talk about the weather changing, all these different things. I mean, literally, it's late October. Here we are in, Washington, D.C., and, you've got, I'm looking here, today it was a high of 82, 78. They're already saying it's likely going to be a very warm winter, which is, in the last 2 or 3 years, has been that way. And so this idea of these people acting as if climate change isn't real is absolutely crazy. You talk about the hurricane that hit the East Coast. That was this interesting story a local station had done, how people, about 3 years ago, people had left eastern North Carolina to move to Asheville because they figured, being in the mountains of North Carolina, they were free from climate change, and then massive flooding actually happens. It was kind of like, oh my God, we actually can't escape this. And so I think that's also, it's been so politicized, and these scientists are not real, these are, that it also impacts how people sort of view these issues.
Absolutely, and it's wonky by design. Well, if we go all the way back to like Reagan, when we first started talking about climate change, similar to Trump and Vance, he was taking big oil money. Like everyone has an agenda to push, and so they make climate change really, really wonky. Also, I think people just don't know the difference between weather and climate. Like weather is day to day. Climate is like how weather, like the period of weather over 30-year increments, which is how we know that the Earth is warming, because period by period, we are seeing those temperatures rise, which then disrupts the atmosphere and is causing all of this extreme weather, from heat waves to extreme storms to like even how, previously when we thought about hurricanes, it's like, okay, as soon as they make landfall, they're going to slow down and just dissipate. Now we are seeing that slow-moving storms have the power to dump more water, which, like you mentioned, is like devastating folks who like moved to different areas to be able to protect themselves from rising seas and the things that we are seeing from climate change.
And of course, for me, being a native of Houston, look, I've been living with hurricanes my entire life. you prefer a fast-moving hurricane as opposed to a slow-moving one, because you're right. When you're dumping that amount of water, it completely overwhelms systems. And then when you have them back-to-back, frankly, the Earth can't absorb those back-to-back storms, and now it just wreaks even more havoc. I want to bring in Mustafa in this conversation as well, because Mustafa, again, I do believe language matters, semantics matters. And so when you're hearing environment, climate, weather, environmental racism, what I try to do is, and what I do is try to simplify this as much as possible and explain to people, do you care about what's in your food? Do you care about the air you breathe? Do you care about the water that you drink? Do understand your entire existence is dependent upon what's in the air and what's in the ground.
Exactly, and you hit it right on the head. You know, it is about food, it is about health, it is about jobs. We know that those are three issues that even in this particular moment, folks care about. No matter what color they are right now, they actually care about those. But for our communities, it's critically important for us to be able to help them to understand that when we see these prices for food going up, there is a connection also to both the climate crisis and injustices about where and how people can grow food. Can we grow food in our backyards like our grandparents used to do? Or do we now live in communities, these sacrifice zones, that have toxic pollution that are there? When we look at the health impacts that are happening inside of our communities, we got to make sure that we're having the environmental justice conversation with the climate crisis conversation, because so many people now know, individuals who have asthma, or maybe their baby girl or their son has asthma, and then we make those linkages that are there about the fossil fuels and the air pollution that people are breathing, and then we help people to understand that that same pollution that is making Black folks sick and shortening our lives is that same pollution that is also playing a role in driving the climate crisis. And then, of course, the other part is people always want to know, if you're talking about this new clean economy, not only can I get a job in this space, but can I be a boss? Can I be a boss? Can I own my own business in this space? So when I'm having these conversations with folks, I'm bringing all the things that are actually playing out in their lives on a daily a daily type of situation, and helping them to understand where resources are, who are people who look like them, or helping to create these new businesses and make change, and what the future can actually look like for our communities.
Tamara, I think that when we talk about the jobs aspect of this, this is what I think is the fundamental problem in the United States. We actually prefer stuff to reach catastrophic points before we go, okay, fine, maybe we ought to fix this thing. Because we are so economically driven in this country, and we just got to go ahead and be clear about this. This is a capitalistic society. It is about how can I make as much money as possible and keep as much money as possible and to become rich. So what we then do is we say, oh no, you hear Donald Trump, the Green New Deal, it's gonna cost too much. It's gonna just too much money. We don't have enough the electric grid. We don't have enough power stations, and we need more gas and oil and drill, baby, drill. That's just literally how we think, and you're seeing what's happening. But the problem is, all you hear is, oh, this is too costly, as if there's not an actual cost to what has happened with the climate in this country and in this world.
Yeah, so it isn't just that there's a lie that it doesn't cost money. The idea that doing everything, like the Green New Deal is an umbrella, it's a concept. It talks about paying for jobs, making sure people have health care, and that there is energy. Guess what? We pay for those things anyway. So there really is no differential between whether or not we do something about it, whether we're consumers or whether we are people who own our own capacity. We're going to put money in, we're putting labor, we're putting in our sweat, and when we live and die, other people make money off of it. So there is no too expensive to grow into what's better for our people, because we pay on either end, especially when we're not in charge of what we're discussing. So there is no financial argument to continue polluting unless you're someone who sells oil and gas. To everybody else, it's cheaper to get clean.
Well, but here's, I think, what's crazy, Markia. It's already costing us. You literally have insurance companies not wanting to do business in Florida, flood insurance, other types of insurance. We're seeing this. So this notion that, oh, we can't afford it, guess what? Regular, ordinary people can't afford it. I had somebody hit me, and this woman, she says, well, I don't understand, people, why aren't they leaving? I said, okay, as somebody who's actually had to flee, had to evacuate before because of a hurricane, I said, let me just walk you through basic cost. If you have to pack up and leave, first of all, you gotta have a car. What if you're low income, working poor, you use public transportation. Now you can't leave. Two, if you go somewhere, you have to think you're gonna be gone at a minimum for a week. Okay, hotel's gonna be $200, maybe cheaper, but let's just say $200. Okay, you throw in taxes, you're gonna have to spend possibly $1,200 to $1,500 for a room. Now you gotta eat. Now you got kids. I said, so that's anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 you're going to need to be able to leave for that week. How many people actually have an extra $2,000 to $4,000 to leave? They don't. That's a real cost when a natural disaster is on its way, which is why a lot of people stay because they actually can't afford to leave. And so when you start seeing more of these weather-driven circumstances, that is a cost. There's a human cost, a financial cost right now.
And the thing is, we shouldn't have to leave. Like, we did not create this problem, and so we should not be on the hook for it. And even outside of just fleeing, we've seen big oil companies pass along the cost for, like, repairing grids and, like, the cost to rebuild communities onto the people that live there as if we were the people that started this problem and as if we are fueling this problem, when essentially we just want to be able to live our lives in our communities and like live in communities that also are safe from environmental harm.
I want to go back to the poll that y'all released. You really see the movement when it comes to voters. You really see that movement among 18 to 34. That really jumps out. But what also I think is interesting, where y'all said that when it comes to following proper messaging, strong motivation, vote motivation increases by 6 points. A third of black battleground voters 18 to 34 feel more motivated by the end of the poll. But what jumped out at me when it says, go to my iPad, 1 in 4 battleground voters feel more motivated. These voters tend to be black voters 1849, particularly black voters 1834 and black men. Why specifically black men? Just curious.
I think specifically because black men tend to be like the movable middle. These are the people that are like really focused on providing for their families and their communities. And so what they are most interested in is the economy. So when we present this messaging of good paying jobs that don't require college degrees, people can see themselves in this future where they are able to provide for their families without working multiple jobs. And I think that's why we're seeing the most movement amongst black men. But another thing is like amongst young voters and also women voters, the idea of a future that our children can thrive in also does really well.
Tamara, I think you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I mean, I always do. I think, why are we focused on black men? Because the black vote is the vote that makes the elections happen. And the black man is a part of the community, the leader of the family. And so, frankly, the idea that whether black men are being persecuted, somebody's getting paid on that, if people are being put in under the jail, black men are being targeted for that costs people and it costs the culture. If black men are put on a track for success or failure, somebody in America is making money on it. So it's not just that we're the movable middle, it's that we are the people who move things in this country. There have never been an election that has been won without the black vote. And so by separating us by gender, organizing us by race, figuring out how to break apart the black family, there's a lot of money to be made, a lot of votes to be moved. And so, frankly, the idea that black men are responsive to knowing that there will be jobs in an environment where they don't have to take jobs that kill them is pretty straightforward.
Mustafa?
Yeah, no, everything that folks said. I think the other part of it, too, especially when you look at that particular age range, is that individuals have grown up seeing everything from Hurricane Katrina to Hurricane Harvey to Maria. They've seen the lead crises that we have in Flint, Michigan, and in Jackson, Mississippi. So folks are paying much more attention to these impacts that are happening inside of our communities. And then as the sisters have shared on the flip side, they also are now paying attention to these opportunities because, yeah, there are, now over 300,000 new clean energy jobs that are out there. But people also who want to be entrepreneurs have an opportunity around contracting and subcontracting and be able to create their own businesses, to be able to take care of their families, to be able to address the wealth gap that exists inside of our communities. So it is an exciting time, and that's why we have to take a serious look at both of the people who are running and ask the question, who truly cares about our community, improving our health, and who truly has a track record of also creating economic opportunities for us to move into the space? Because we know when we come into a space, our Black genius then takes over, and we take it to a whole nother level.
Markia, when I look at, again, when I look at this poll, go to my iPad, y'all have it here. Target the right audience with the right message. Create a message testing study to identify the most impactful messaging to the right audience around Harris's vision for climate and clean energy, as well as going on offense against Trump. Has that been happening?
It has been happening. I think it's really important to focus on contrast messaging and also making the argument clear and pointing out the dangers of Project 2025. Not only does it threaten the National Weather Service, but it's going to put basic needs behind paywalls, which makes recovery from extreme weather even more difficult, as well as like things that will impact our everyday lives, from like healthcare to childcare to like our access to food, as Mustafa has talked about earlier and how important this is. And so Project 2025 literally threatens our livelihood, and our lives are on the line with this election.
I'm seeing here, go back to my iPad here, Mustafa. It says Trump gets the most trust from Black voters on economic issues like jobs and cost of living. So emphasizing Harris's commitment to create new, good-paying, clean energy jobs, lowering costs, and creating pathways to the middle class is an opportunity to build trust on the economy. How would you assess it thus far, 14 days out?
Yeah, well, again, that's why this show is so important, because we get to help people to have an understanding of what's really going on here. So we know with Project 2025, which is linked to Trump, let's not, fool ourselves that he and others have not played a significant role there. We know that there's 1.7 million jobs that will be lost. Let me say that again, 1.7 million jobs lost. So that tells me right there that you are not an economic genius if we are going to actually lose the new jobs that are being created in this clean energy space. The other part that's important is that you always hear people talking about my energy bills are too high. We know from studies that it's shown that about $32 billion in increases will be a part of our energy bills if we allow Project 2025 to move forward. So all of that, Trump has to carry. You can't get away from it. The numbers are the numbers. On the other side of the equation, we know that the Harris administration has actually been focused on both creating jobs under Biden-Harris, and she's also focused on creating additional clean energy jobs. And also, studies have shown that they will actually decrease, our energy costs by $38 billion. So for everybody who's out there, whether you're standing on the corner, you're in the barber shop, you're in the library, wherever you're at, if somebody tells you that you're going to lose over 1 million jobs here, and the other person is actually creating jobs and has a track record on it, and then the other side of the equation, once again, is saying that they are going to increase your energy costs. So if there's anybody out there who's actually cool with your energy bills going up, then you know the administration that you should go for. But if you want your bills to actually go down, your energy costs to go down, then you have an administration on the Harris side who has a track record and who also has a plan moving forward.
Going back, Tamara, to the 1834. Go back to my iPad. It says Black voters 1834 need to hear about the threat Trump poses to climate progress and their futures, especially when it comes to Project 2025 and his tax breaks for big oil. Listen, he had a meeting with big oil where he essentially said to them, y'all fund my campaign, I'm gonna let y'all do whatever the hell y'all want. People need to understand that's gonna happen.
It's already happening. That meeting is ongoing right now while the rest of the world is gathering and trying to figure out how to save the last bird, the last dog, the last fruit or vegetable that they enjoy. There are people making decisions right now to figure out just how little of your life you will get to enjoy. So it's pretty clear when you look at the options on the table who is for the Black community. Not just because they happen to identify with us, but because, frankly, the other side is just trying to get paid and then get gone. And so casting your lot with folks who are focused on making sure that they keep the status quo that keeps us undernourished, underserved, unhoused, and unapologetically ignored when it's time to count after the votes are counted. It's really clear that going backwards is not the way that we can to move forward. It's not surprising that people are recognizing that the promise of new jobs and the opportunity to live to fight another day is more appealing. Basically, the idea that FEMA's not going to show up when your house gets flooded, nor is it going to show up if your crops get burnt. It's the police are not going to show up to support you because they're not going to be resourced in ways that allow them to do anything other than spray you with bullets. Like, we are in a very real set of challenges that are not going to get better if you vote with the folks who just want your face in the front of the camera, as opposed to your voice and the politic that determines your future. And so Project 2025 is just one part of how we will fail to meet the mandate and continue to support people who want to kill us. So the choices are clear.
But Bakir, you do have to deal with the reality of politics. You look at the issue of fracking in Pennsylvania. 2019, then Senator Kamala Harris was against fracking. She's now moderated her position. For Pennsylvania, that's a huge issue. And so part of this issue, frankly, when it comes to politics, is it's a dance you play. Because one state, there may be an issue like fracking that is huge in a Pennsylvania, but in another state, it's irrelevant. And so when you start talking about battleground states, again, I mean, I can think about NAFTA. NAFTA, was huge for Trump in Ohio because a lot of those folks said, they lost their jobs. But the folks in Texas were like, it was cool with us. And so let's talk about that, because that's the dance that, frankly, she has to play, because you have to play electoral politics based upon that one thing, jobs.
Yes, and also what we're seeing about the fracking conversation is that it really is not as important as people make it to be. We know that Pennsylvania is really big on fracking, but we also know that Pennsylvania is looking forward to change, looking forward to having jobs that don't sacrifice the lives of people living there. And although it's still a big issue right now, I would argue that as we continue to invest in the clean energy economy, it will become less and less of an issue.
I'm sorry, Tamara, go ahead.
Just to push back even further, some of the biggest investments for clean energy have come out of Pennsylvania. Folks who have had their water poisoned, their air poisoned. Pennsylvania is also the only state that has an amendment in the Constitution to protect your right to have clean air and an environment that you can live in. You know where that came from? People who got tired of losing their family members to industry, oil, air pollution, and all of the above combining to be an industry that clouds out your voice. So for the folks who are loud and proud on all of those issues, there are many folks lining up to fight at the front lines coming from Pennsylvania against all of it. So it's not a closed book. Philanthropy has really shown up to make the point that fracking isn't just bad for the people who are recognizing the emissions. It's bad for the people who have to live in the shadow of what is done to the soil, the air, and the water that they need to live. And those people are poor, all of them.
But right there, Mustafa, it's trying to reach those low-income, poor workers and then translate those issues to voting. Reverend William Barber talks about this here, and so it's the economic piece. And so how do you do that, especially when you're talking about poor, low-income, working-class, white voters who Republicans are appealing to on culture issues as opposed to economic and health and environmental issues?
Well, because we know that the economics and the jobs is so critically important, we bring forward the stories and examples of folks who look just like the people who are being impacted and help them to understand, the folks have been able to create these new sets of businesses and then create a new sets of jobs in both wind and solar and thermal and a number of the other industries that are a part of this. Because people need to see themselves represented. People need to see their reflection in folks who have been able to navigate this. And often that's not being done enough. And that's why, the work that Tamara does and others and funding, on the ground work is so incredibly important, because then people get a chance to see this is not just theory. This is, actually people are putting it all together, and they're being able to create not only a pathway forward, but they're being able to make sure that people have, this livable wage that folks often talk about. But it's far beyond that, because as was shared earlier, even if you don't have a college degree, you can enter into these spaces because you work great with both your hands and your mind. And that's what the people, I come from these communities. I come from Appalachia, so I've done lots of work in Pennsylvania and Ohio and other areas. And that's what people are looking for. They want not just hope, they want a pathway forward, but they want to be able to see that it's real, that the resources are there, and that there's a place for them.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. Markia, I know you're going to be leaving us. Give us your final thoughts regarding this poll.
Yes, so this poll is super close to me because as a Black person who has worked in climate for a long period of time, I see how it impacts our day-to-day. And it's very important for us to really be able to be future forward, looking at clean energy economy, making sure we can clean up our communities and build resilient communities to be able to weather the storms. Because as we spoke about earlier, fleeing is not always an option, and it should not be. And so I think that the future is bright with this, because we know Black voters win elections. And what we're seeing from this poll is that Black voters move anywhere between 6 and 11 points, which is the largest number. And so I believe that with this messaging, we can win this thing.
If folks want to get more information and see the results of the poll, where should they go?
They should go to climatepower.com and then click on the research and polling tab. And we have all of our polls there, but if you type in Black, then you will get all of the polling results, specifically for Black people and Black communities.
All right, Markia Thomas, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, going to go to break. We come back. We're going to talk more about climate crisis we're facing in the country. And remember, we were in North Carolina a couple of years ago. Do y'all realize that North Carolina is the home of the environmental racism movement, the environmental justice movement? Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network, this special edition of our show focusing on the climate crisis specific to Black America. Back in a moment.
IVF is a miracle for us because it allowed us to have our family. After having my daughter, I wanted more children, but my embryo transfer was canceled 8 days before the procedure. Donald Trump overturning Roe v. Wade stopped us from growing the family that we wanted. I don't want politicians telling me how or when I can have a baby. We need a president that will protect our rights, and that's Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Bob and I both voted for Donald Trump.
I voted for him twice. I won't vote for him again. January 6th was a wake-up call for me.
Donald Trump divides people. We've already seen what he has to bring.
He didn't do anything to help us. Kamala Harris, she cares about the American people. I think she's got the wherewithal to make a difference. I've never voted for a Democrat.
Yes, we're both lifelong Republicans.
The choice is very simple.
I'm voting for Kamala.
I am voting for Kamala Harris.
In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. It should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. We don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is a danger to our troops and our democracy. We can't let him lead our country again.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
Well, if you want to believe or you want to know what Donald Trump actually feels about the issue of climate change and the environment, all you got to do is listen to what he actually has to say. Check this out.
Now we call it. Do you ever notice this was such a big deal, the environmental stuff? I haven't heard the environmental stuff mentioned in 6 months. I was saying the other night, what the hell happened to the environment? David, will you figure this out? David McCormick, everybody vote for him. David, will you figure this out? You know? No, but think about this. I haven't heard, Mike, I haven't heard, they don't ever talk about the environment anymore. You know why? Mike is saying, don't talk about it now. No, it's one of the great scams of all time. You know why they don't talk about it? Because people aren't buying it anymore. I don't want to use bad language. My wife said, please don't use bad language.
Thinks it is a scam. That's out of his own mouth. So folk need to be very aware of that. But here's the other piece. When you talk about Project 2025 and what that will do to the issue of the environment and climate, this is what ProPublica, when they got some videos of some of the folks with Project 2025. Listen to this.
What do you think about all of about the left's words and definitions in the environment?
It's a great point, Katie. They don't stop. Climate change, allegedly, is everywhere. And if the American people elect a conservative president, his administration will have to eradicate climate change references from absolutely everywhere. And according to our intelligence community, the #1 threat facing our country today is, drumroll, climate change. Not Russia, not China, not AI, climate change. This shows how the federal government is all in on this issue. And climate change activists wield a lot of power. This is an issue to pay attention to as it has infiltrated every part of the federal government. Now, when I think of climate change, I immediately think of population control, don't you? I think about the people who don't want you to have children because of the impact on the environment. Perhaps not everyone will make that connection, but after spending time in the international space trying to protect life, I can tell you that this is part of their ultimate goal, to control people.
What? I'm sorry. Mustafa, what the hell are they talking about?
Well, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Like, I don't know what the hell that. We were from climate to population control?
Well, if they had their information correct, Roland, they would understand that there are younger people who feel that folks are not serious about addressing the climate crisis. So some of them have said that they don't want to have children and have their children have to go through what we know is going to come from the climate crisis. But besides that, here's where they're also incorrect. So if the intelligence community, whose job is to be able to understand where the greatest sets of impacts are coming from and also predict what the future is going to look like so they can do the risk management that's necessary, one side. The other side of the equation that she didn't say is that the military has also said that climate change is one of the greatest threats because many of our military bases are, on areas that are close to water bodies. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is that they're not coming from a scientific perspective or from somebody who just goes outside on their back porch and sees the changes that are currently going on. So their whole goal is to be able to strip the language of climate out of the federal government, which will then make sure that there's no resources that are garnered for it. And for the Black community, that means that we are going to continue to have all of these additional health burdens and shortening of our lives because we did not address, what we could have done if we had a president who actually cared. Here's the other part that they didn't say, is that if this stuff is not real, why did the Trump administration take over 125 actions to weaken or to eliminate protecting clean air and clean water and the land and addressing the climate crisis? So if it's not a real thing, they wouldn't have needed to do any of that. And then, of course, the Biden-Harris administration had over 300 policies in place, and there still needed to be more to address the issues. And I know my dear sister will unpack that.
Go right ahead, because I still have no idea what the hell two white women were talking about.
So my grandma said you can't wrestle with crazy. But what I'll say is Project 2025 is just an amalgam of a bunch of things that are set to trigger you. If you want to go to places where doctors can't serve you, have your energy cost more so that you have to decide whether you will eat or have power, have food that is more likely to poison you than feed you, and have nothing but chemicals pouring over your life, your body, your children, and the potential of whether you would ever have children, then Project 2025 is for you. Because it's full of politics, nonsense, word salad, and crazy talk, which puts you into conversations like the one we just had to sit through, where we have to watch someone talking about population control. You know who cares about population control? People who look at data and don't care about people. We are not in a conversation that is just about data. We're in a conversation about floods and fire and damage and the cost of electricity and the quality of your life being shut down and your children not having access to the basic things you have counted on because the planet doesn't sustain us. That's not somebody else's business. We know what population control is. It is a boogeyman that allows people to try out the things that are scariest to you at moments when they think if you just keep doing the same thing, they're going to be all right at your expense. So I'm not going to wrestle with crazy and what was going on between those two women, because what they were doing was getting paid a lot of money to confuse people, to muddy the situation, and to make it seem as though people were going to take something, especially from Black people for whom everything has already been taken. Like what we're in this contest, this political contest about is what we're going to get out of it. And what we need to get out of it is a future where we have dignity, where we have rights, we have security, and we don't have to listen to people talk in circles to us as though we're not in the conversation already.
Things have actually been done in the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed by the Biden-Harris administration. And actually, it was Vice President Kamala Harris who actually cast that tie-breaking vote. We're talking about some $270 billion. This right here is a fact sheet a member of Congress put out talking about extending and expanding clean energy tax credits, new investment tax credit, dealing with energy storage, microgrid technology, also new direct pay for nonprofits and others when it comes to clean energy credits, bonuses for high road labor standards and key clean energy and clean vehicle tax provisions, new incentive to keep existing nuclear energy power plants online, $27 billion for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund for nonprofit, state, and local climate finance institutions that will finance the rapid deployment of zero-emission technologies and other things as well. And the thing here, Mustafa, that I think we have to just acknowledge is, again, it's frankly how ass backwards we were. I mean, listen, if we go back to when Jimmy Carter was in the White House, okay? Mm-hmm. Carter installed solar panels on the roof of the White House, and they mocked him. Republicans mocked him. One of the first things that Reagan did was remove the solar panels from the White House. Imagine if in this country we actually cared then how far ahead we would be today. And when I'm listening to J.D. Vance and Trump complain about, how we're behind China when it comes to, solar panels, that's your party. Y'all screwed that up. Solar technology is an American invention. Yeah. But because Republicans poo-pawed it and crapped all over it, that's what led to China leading on it. That was an American technology, and had Republicans not trashed it, we would be so much further along in 2024.
We most definitely would. China was like, oh, you don't want it? We'll take it. And now they have this huge industry that's there. That's not to say that we don't also have a footprint there, but you've got to have, you know, administration after administration that continues to make investments in that space. That's why the CHIPS Act also is so incredibly important, because there's sets of dollars that are there to help us on the technology side of addressing what's going on in relationship to the climate crisis. And the other part of it is, as my dear sister, shared earlier, is that we also would have saved millions of lives, because we know that in our communities and in other vulnerable communities, when we're breathing in all of this toxic air pollution that comes out of the tailpipes of cars and coming out of factories and coming from a number of other places, that, you know, if we had begun to move earlier into a cleaner economy, we would have saved those lives. We would have also helped people to keep more dollars in their pocket, because they wouldn't have had to, you know, go to the doctor all the time because of all these breathing difficulties and the liver and kidney diseases and the cancers. People are always like, well, why is cancer, you know, eating up certain communities? You got to take a look at the toxic food that people are eating. And when I say toxic, I'm not just talking about food deserts. I'm also talking about, you know, the chemicals that are in there, but also what's in our air and what's in our water. So when Jimmy Carter was trying to get us to actually think critically about the 21st century and the sets of opportunities that would be there, and then you saw Ronald Reagan come in and take us backwards in time, you know, they put people's lives in danger, and they also, impacted us on the economic side of the equation in a very significant way. But we can right the ship in that the past administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has actually been making those investments, both in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the climate bill, the CHIPS Act, to move us forward. But we have to make sure that there's real intentionality, and that the Black community is also benefiting from these huge sets of opportunities that are out there.
Tamara, this is a video that the White House put out in 2022, saying in 2022 there were 240 guys. Come on, switch. There were 240 million solar panels in the United States in 8 years. So by 2029, there will be nearly 1 billion solar panels in the United States. That's because of that investment. That's a perfect example of one facet of the attack dealing with climate crisis by not having us be so dependent upon oil, gas, coal, and utilizing what is always there, the sun.
That's right. The sun's always going to shine. The wind's always going to blow. Why shouldn't we be making it work for us? I have a colleague who I don't like that much, but she says it all the time, and it's absolutely
You don't like her?
I just want to put that out there. She knows who she is. I think it's important to flag that, like, the we is important here. We didn't take the solar panels off the White House. We didn't put them back on, and we haven't been a part of this conversation because we've been excluded from it. This is a unique opportunity. What the IRA did was put a lot of money on the boulevard, not on the street, on the boulevard, so that we could incentivize all the other things that make it possible for us to become owners, to get in the conversation about what we're going to do, to have choice in the conversation. That doesn't mean there's fights that are over, but the idea that we can reclaim from what's been lost because we weren't invited into those conversations, even though we've been on that clean energy game. Like Madam C.J. Walker had an electric car in 1910. Wow. 1910. The first Black millionaire had an electric car.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Why?
Really?
She did. Yes. Do you know why? Because they marketed it to rich people, including rich Black people, that it was a clean car. You didn't have to get your hands dirty. So we have been in this conversation every time we've ever had a moment, some space, some resources, or some relief from other folks helping making decisions on our behalf. We have been in this conversation, and the 3 or 4 times we've tried to have it, it's been pulled back by industry that has its grip on the politics, its dirty, oily hands on the way that we talk about what we need and who the we is. Frankly, it's so cheap to buy a vote these days that by proxy, if you can just spill enough oil and gas in a place to move people out of where they belong or gerrymander them out of their vote, it's why climate is at the center of the things we have to do as Black people, because our future is in it, our self-sufficiency is in it, our self-determination is in it, and we've been here forever.
You just said something that I think is, and I really try my best to avoid having to hear Donald Trump's voice. But I really do need people who've yet to vote to understand how stupid of a person we are dealing with. I need people to realize that this man is not bright when we are talking about wind, okay? I'm about to play for y'all 3 clips. And everybody, y'all, this is not AI. This is not created. This is literally coming from the mouth of an imbecile. Listen.
You know this. Do you know we need twice as much electricity as we currently have in our country for AI, but the environmentalists won't let you produce it? They want wind. The wind is blowing today. The whole thing is the most expensive hoax in the world. The wind, it kills our birds.
Okay, I'm gonna play another one.
To keep from crying.
I'm gonna play another one. Here we go. Roll it.
Instead of playing this game with wind that is ruining everything, killing all your birds, destroying the fields, all these gorgeous fields, you got windmills all over the place, and you have birds. You want to see a bird cemetery? Just go under a windmill. You see thousands of birds dead. The bald eagle, if you kill an eagle, they put you in jail for years. And yet these windmills knock them out like nothing, and nothing happens to the people. Now, it's a good...
It's great to be back.
I don't... Okay, I gotta play one more, y'all, because this is really a strange one. Go. Hold 1 second. Because when I saw this one, y'all, I said, this man needs to be in an insane asylum. He don't need to be nowhere near, let me find it, because he was talking about TV. Okay, hold up. Let me play this one. Watch this.
We'll have an economy based on wind. I never understood wind. You know, I know windmills very much. I've studied it better than anybody. I know it's very expensive. They're made in China and Germany mostly. Very few made here, almost none. But they're manufactured tremendous, if you're into this, tremendous fumes, gases are spewing into the atmosphere. You know, we have a world, right? So the world is tiny compared to the universe. So tremendous amount of fumes and everything. You talk about the carbon footprint, fumes are spewing into the air, right?
So, one of y'all want to take that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll just buy my brother some time and say that one of the biggest market programs for how we get people to pay for all this pollution that's floating around in the wind was developed by Republicans. Just want to put that out there. Climate is not political. There are trees everywhere, or they need to be where they are. There is sun everywhere. There is wind everywhere. There is water everywhere. There is food that we gather from the earth. There is nothing political about climate. The foolishness that comes out of these political contests makes it seem as though you can be for this and not for that. No one can drink water that's poisoned. No one can eat fish that are full of toxins. No one's kids will be okay if you have a gas stove and it puts a gas into the air and slowly makes it impossible for them to catch a breath and they get asthma. That is not up for votes. But what is up for votes is whether or not people are going to lie to you about those things being true. And so this nonsense and this rhetoric, the reason it's exhausting is because it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to make any sense. They're supposed to pull you into a rabbit hole full of crazy that makes you just do whatever they want you to do so they'll go away.
I gotta play this with him, Mustafa, before you comment, because I mean, this is like the dumb man greatest hits on wind. Check this one out, y'all.
Much better the second time than we did the first time. Much better by many millions of votes. But we're running, and I tell the little, it's sad, it's a joke, but it's not a joke. Darling, I'd like to watch the president tonight on television. No, you can't. The wind isn't blowing, right? The wind isn't blowing. There's no television tonight, darling.
We're not...
I mean, it's sad. It's sad. One, it shows that he doesn't read. You know, in his previous administration, people used to always talk about how he didn't read his briefings, those types of things. If you spent a half an hour you could have some of the basics that you need to know about what's going on, who's actually benefiting. So maybe they couldn't watch the TV because they were in Texas and because the grid, which has not been upgraded,
That's right.
and because they also didn't move forward on making sure that they had renewable energy as a part of that, maybe that's why I couldn't watch. When he talks about windmills, windmills are not out there killing massive amounts of birds. He should have a conversation about the pollution that's coming out of stacks. That is not only killing birds, but killing other wildlife. That is also impacting our environment. That's killing Black and brown people. If he was serious when he was in Pennsylvania, he would have went over to where Zulene Mayfield used to be over in Chester, Pennsylvania, and had conversations with folks there. Or if he was going to be in Philly, he could have slid right over on the west side of Philly and found out about all the people who've been exposed. Or he could have went to Institute, West Virginia. Or he could go to the Manchester community in Houston, Texas. Or he could go to Cancer Alley between New Orleans and Baton Rouge and see, when we're moving all of those fossil fuels down to be refined, what the impact looks like in vulnerable communities. And then maybe he would actually have a moment of humanity and say, we need to be moving toward cleaner types of energy, so not only are folks not dying from the initial sets of impacts that are coming out of the stacks, but also because this is the same stuff, the carbon and methane that's heating up our oceans and our atmosphere, and are causing these storms like Hurricane Helene. So he has an opportunity to actually be more well-versed, but unfortunately he is either, and I try to be a respectful person, but I just got to keep it real. He is either an imbecile, or he is somebody who is consciously putting people's lives in danger. Last point, if he actually really was somebody who knew economics, he would understand who's making some of the greatest investments in wind. And if you go and look at Texas or in Oklahoma, then you follow the money back to the people who are actually investing in that space, there's a whole bunch of Republicans who are saying, when the cameras are on, this is a terrible thing, this is a climate hoax. And then on the other side, they're taking the money that they're getting and putting it in their back pocket because they understand that people have to move toward a new clean economy or we won't have a livable planet. And we know the first people and the worst hit impacts are going to be for Black and brown folks.
I think imbecile is it. I just can't. I can't think of anything else. I mean, you're not dealing with a serious person. And again, what Project 2025 wants to do, they want to gut everything. If people thought they attacked the EPA when he was there the first time, they want to completely obliterate the EPA. They don't give a damn about America's national treasures. They don't care about national parks. They want to drill everywhere. They do not care. They will literally rape and pillage the land in this country to satisfy big oil.
And then some.
Yeah. And we talked about the huge tax breaks that he plans on giving. I think the last number I saw was $110 billion in tax breaks that he wants to give to big oil. So, you got to understand that big oil, we know the impacts personally that have happened inside of our communities. We know how they tried to muddy up the science. When scientists finally said X is going to happen, how they tried to discredit them. We know the history going back over 50 years of some of the big oil companies hiding facts and then manipulating facts. So we know their track record. I believe everybody can evolve if they want to, but all we know is what we've been able to see, and that they have done everything to prop up these politicians to put forward, legislation or to weaken legislation that has huge impacts inside of our communities. They also understand that when you've got 2.4 million miles of fossil fuel pipeline in this country, enough to go to the moon and back a number of times, that they're going to continue to fill those pipelines. And what they fill it with, in many instances, is death or sickness for our community. So they're very clear. There's much intentionality in what's currently going on. And that's why when you look at Project 2025, I resigned last time. I was the highest ranking federal official, the first one to actually say, you know what, I'm not supporting this. But now they've gotten much, much smarter. So people often see all the jobs that they're going to eliminate, the language that you can't use, the manipulation of science to not tell people the truth about the impacts that are going on. But what folks don't talk about with Project 2025 is that also when you bring in all these Trump sycophants, then you're also going to have individuals who are making decisions about where the grants are going to go and what the grants actually look like that have played a traditional role in helping communities to build capacity, to have a better understanding of what's going on. They're also going to make sure that those advisory committees that have played such a critical role in bringing forward, both the amazing work that folks have been able to do, but the sets of challenges that are still going on, they will also have control over that. So there's all these things that go on inside of these federal agencies and departments that people haven't really thought about in relationship to Project 2025. And what it really does is it places a crosshair on so many communities across our country, both Black and brown and indigenous and Asian and Pacific Islander and lower wealth white communities. We have to make sure that people understand how significant this manifesto is and doing nothing to improve your life, but everything in placing additional challenges on shortening your life.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I add to it that I don't know that they've necessarily gotten smarter, but they have gotten organized. So what my brother is talking about is the fact that there are a bunch of folks who look like you, who moved into this political moment from lots of places, so that in this moment, resources that were moving towards you will get closer to where you live, will set in motion industry and capacity where your voice is welcome. What's on the other side of that is that the watchdogs that are from your community that have been keeping everybody honest in this moment will be removed. They'll be replaced by folks who will do whatever the check tells them to do, and that check tells them to erase the Black community. We are in a fight for our lives like we've always been in the election that we have been waiting for 405 years. The question is not what's on the ballot, it's what about your life is not on the ballot. And so Project 2025 is the biggest organization of all the ideas that could be put up at this moment to make your life harder, more expensive, and more painful, more likely to lead to an untimely death. So we are not talking about if this, then that, maybe this will get something. There are no political bargains to be made in this moment. What we are doing now is talking about what we will get if we vote in one direction versus another, and the direction and the choices are life and death, frankly.
And I do want to, before I go to a break, I want to point this out. For only the second time in its 179-year history, the Scientific American has endorsed someone for president. They offered their endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris. Come on, guys. Yeah, come on.
You got to believe in science to be supported by scientists. So there's that.
Right. And so they say right here, Kamala Harris has plans to improve health, boost the economy, and mitigate climate change. Donald Trump has threats and a dangerous record. You can go to scientificamerican.com to actually see their endorsement.
And what's underneath that for Black people is that, frankly, the democracy doesn't end when you cast your vote. So between the choices, the likelihood that you will have a chance to fight for what you need increases in one direction and decreases in the other.
Quick break. We come back, folks. You may not realize that, but it was in North Carolina where Black folk created what is known as the environmental justice movement. We'll show you a little bit of the EPA leader, Michael Regan, speaking on that at an event in North Carolina in Black Star Network. We were there covering it. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered, special edition of our climate crisis and its impact on Black America. Back in a moment.
Disastrous, alarming, a plan that shreds American values. That's what independent news sources and conservatives are saying about a proposal from right-wing extremists called Project 2025. It would threaten hundreds of thousands of jobs created by the Clean Energy Plan, give massive tax breaks to big oil, and roll back protections that keep corporations from poisoning our water with toxic chemicals. Project 2025, a dream for them, a disaster for you.
In In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. It should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is a danger to our troops and our democracy. We can't let him lead our country again.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Hi, my name is Freddie Ricks. I'm from Houston, Texas.
My name is Sharon Williams. I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
It was black folks in Warren County, North Carolina, that actually created what is known as the environmental injustice movement. A couple of years ago, EPA Director Michael Regan was there, and the Black Star Network was there live streaming an event there where they talked about that history and discussed how they were reshaping the EPA to deal with the issue of environmental justice. Here's some of what Regan had to say in September 2022.
What an honor to be in the presence of so many giants of the environmental justice and civil rights movement, especially as we conclude a week-long commemoration of the birth of the environmental justice movement, whose roots are firmly planted right here in Warren, North Carolina. You know, as a proud son of North Carolina, I was born and raised, and I was just a child when the state decided to site the PCB landfill in the backyard of a predominantly black community. But I remember my parents discussing the heroism of the women and men who locked arms and laid down in front of those trucks carrying that laced dirt with PCBs. Women and men like Dolly Burwell, Ben Chavis, Reverend Bill Kearney, EPA's own Charles Lee joined protesters in solidarity. A Washington Post story at the time quoted Reverend Luther Brown, a pastor of the largest black congregation in the area, and he said, "We know why they picked us. It's because we're a poor county, poor politically, poor in health, poor in education, and because it's mostly black." But he also said nobody thought people like us would make a fuss. But boy, did they stir the hornet's nest. Because what this community lacked in political power, they made up for in courage. What they lacked in access to education, they made up for it in heart. What they lacked in terms of money in their pockets, they made up for it in faith, in hope, and perseverance. So not only did this community make a fuss, this community ignited a movement. And today, Warren County is synonymous with being the birthplace of environmental justice. You know, those protests 40 years ago were not only a catalyst for the environmental justice movement as we know of today, but it was a real awakening of the consciousness of this community that had been underserved and overburdened for so many years. It demonstrates the transformative potential that exists when people peacefully mobilize and come together in a common pursuit. As Ms. Dolly Burwell put it, African Americans determined that henceforth and forevermore will have some say in the government that was controlling our destiny. So despite losing the initial battle, these visionary women and men sparked something so much bigger, so much more powerful. And that's what we're here today to honor and to uplift. The reason we've reached this moment when environmental justice is front and center to President Biden's agenda and EPA's agenda, is because of the unrelenting advocacy of so many of you here today. It's because of faith leaders and civil rights leaders, the labor community, the environmental justice community, folks like Vernice Miller-Travis, Dr. Bob Bullard, Reverend Barber, Dr. Wright, Juan and Anna Paris, and young leaders like my good friend, Lamisha Whittington, William Barber III, who are carrying this sacred mission forward. These are the people who have dedicated their lives to standing up and speaking out against racism and injustice and inequality.
Folks, if you want to see all of that, you can simply go to our Black Star Network app or go to our YouTube channel. Mustafa, you were there that day. And again, black folks, again, knowing what our history, it was African Americans that launched this movement in North Carolina. North Carolina is a battleground state, and we still are seeing these issues. In Georgia, the local folks are suing the company. Well, they had that explosion just about a week ago that spewed all sorts of chemicals in the air there, impacting the health of folks living there.
Yeah, you know, it was a historic moment, and big shout out to Administrator Regan, you know, for the amazing job that he has done over the last almost 4 years now. It's really moved environmental justice, you know, leaps ahead of where it had been for, you know, decades of the work that was going on. And really, you know, focusing on something that I'd always shared with folks, that we have to move people from surviving to thriving. So we know that there's still a huge amount of work that has to happen. But for decades, people were having great ideas and were doing work, but they didn't have the resources to be able to match up with the incredible sets of, you know, ideas and innovation that they had. So now we finally have that. But we still got these battles that are going on. You know, in North Carolina, you still got the hog farms, the CAFO, certified animal feeding operations things. You know, we've got these lagoons that are filled with coal ash. When you go down to Georgia, we've still got some battles that are going on in relationship to nuclear and air pollution related issues. So the South is one of the main thrusts of the environmental justice movement. And we just got to give credit, of course, to the matriarchs, who often don't get as much attention, all these amazing women. And they mentioned Dolly Burrell, but there are so many others who are there on the front lines, who helped to frame out the agendas for how we would move forward and how we would hold federal and state and local and county governments accountable. So we've done some good work, but we still got a long way to go to make sure that everybody has clean air and clean water and clean land.
Deborah, earlier you talked about the quality of our food. I came across this video that I thought was pretty interesting, that hopefully people understand the impact of toxic chemicals and plastics in our food. Watch this.
That's right.
I could eat my arm right now.
I'm so hungry.
Yeah.
Hello. Would you like to hear our specials this evening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For starters, we have a delectable bowl of creamy potato soup, seasoned with perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl.
What's that?
Ooh, it's super tasty. They're called forever chemicals, and they're actually linked to hormone disorders and liver damage. And thanks to Trump and his 3 Supreme Court appointees, the portions are huge.
We'll pass.
No liver damage? Okay. Well, how about a nice pasta inspired by Project 2025?
Is that a movie?
We start with fresh fettuccine and alpha-truffle. And then we mix in a colorful variety of microplastics.
Pass.
Pass? Are you sure? It contains atrazine. That's a pesticide that Trump deregulated because lobbyists told him to do so. Oh, it will literally shrink your balls.
I need my balls.
Yeah, we want to have kids.
Oh, so y'all don't want toxic chemicals in your food?
No, of course not. Don't you have something that doesn't have
toxic chemicals?
Yeah.
Sure, silly. You can just vote for Kamala Harris. She's going to support the government agencies that actually want to keep your food clean.
Can we do that right now?
Oh, yes, you can vote early.
Thanks, we're going to go vote.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. Gotta laugh to keep from crying. Project 2025, they have it right on the masthead that the focus is to reverse PFAS, which is what they were describing at that horrifying restaurant. They want to reverse the designation on the CERCLA so that it's just fine. Like, people said it was bad, but don't worry about that. We're just going to reverse the bans based on a lot of political power. I think it's time to move past the point where we argue about what the bad thing is. The conversation is clear. Poison is on the menu. Our lives are being threatened. It is not a choice between the lesser of two evils. There's a lot of evil, and the question is who you want to fight it with.
Final comments, Mustafa.
I just leave it with my grandmother. You know, she says, when you know better, do better. We know better than to put back into office someone who has no regard for our community whatsoever, for our health, for our children, for the future. So if we know better, then the do better aspect of that is actually making sure that you have somebody who cares about our community and who's willing to also make the investments that are necessary for us to be able to move forward. And when we look at the two plans that are out there and the two candidates that are out there, the Harris-Walz has a plan to actually help us to be able to move from surviving to thriving. And unfortunately, the Trump folks have a plan that moves us from thriving to surviving. So the choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that.
Tamara, go ahead.
No, I just think it is, we always arrive here. Without us, neither of these plans can go forward. So it's not just about making a plan to vote. It's about making a plan to vote, making a plan to follow up on your vote, making sure you know who you vote for at every level of the ballot, and that each of those people are people who work for you the day you cast your vote. So I'm excited to see Black people show up, not just because climate change is in our face, because it's in our place.
Folks, final comment is very simple. Climate change is real. The environment is real. The impact on us, our children, is real as well. And guess what? There's only one candidate that actually has a plan. One has another plan, and that is to literally tear this thing to shreds and allow big business to do whatever they want. And so, make your choice known. But for me, it's real simple. As Vice President Kamala Harris, if you care about this climate, if you care about this planet, then that's who you should be supporting. And isn't it interesting, all of these white conservative evangelicals always talking about God's planet, but they actually don't care about life in this regard. They love shouting they're pro-life. Why are they not pro-life when it comes to the economy? Why are they not pro-life when it comes to the environment, when it comes to climate? I'm just saying. I appreciate both of you being with us. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the folks at Climate Power as well. Thank you so very much, folks. Don't forget, support Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network, by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible to do the work that we do. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, PayPal, because Cash App is still tripping with their new changes. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Don't forget, download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Brownie of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Of course, you also have the audio book. And you can get that. Actually, the audio, and of course, that's on Audible. And yes, I did do all of the reading for that. So please check that out. And you can get the book, of course, at various bookstores as well. And tomorrow, folks, I'm going to be in Brooklyn for the Brooklyn Lab Charter School 10th Anniversary Gala. Megan Good is going to be the host. I'm going to be giving the keynote speech. It's beginning at 6 p.m. For more information, go to givebutter.com/BK Lab Prep Gala. That is givebutter.com/BK Lab Prep Gala. And also, don't forget, on Thursday, we're going to be at Edward Waters University. Let me say it again, Edward Waters University. Looking forward to broadcasting our show from there. It's going to be lots of fun. And so we're going to be on the campus. We're going to have a great lineup there as well. So cannot wait to be on the campus there. And so, again, Edward Waters University in Jacksonville, Florida. I will see y'all on Thursday. All right, folks, that is it. I'll see you right here tomorrow, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?